Hello, you are tuning in to AWANI Review. Now, InvestKL in 2022 secured the highest ever FDI, making it the agency's best performing year since its inception in 2011. And joining me on the show today is the CEO of InvestKL, Datuk Muhammad Azmi Zulkifli. Thank you so much for joining me on the show to talk a bit more about this amazing achievement. First of all, congratulations to you and your team at InvestKL.
Thank you.
Now, 2.79 billion ringgit committed investments in 2022 alone. That is a 13% increase year on year. How are you feeling about this achievement?
Certainly, it is a strong testament of Greater Kuala Lumpur as a location of choice for activities that cuts across regional and global type of activities. We were optimistic about the future when we looked at 2022, when we started 2022. And we were certainly pleased with the results that came in. Mentioning 2.79 billion in investments, and most importantly too, creating the right type of high value and high skilled jobs in Greater Kuala Lumpur. That's putting an anchor into the city as a location for the best type of activities from a regional viewpoint.
Well, 2022 was the year where most countries exited the COVID-19 lockdown and activity start, increasing again. How much do you think that is the success that you have seen for InvestKL? How much is that driven by economies opening up, and how much of it then it is because of Greater KL being an attractive investment destination?
Yeah, the decision of the government to declare an endemic stage on 1st of April 2022 is a booster. It's a booster as we imagine in the past 15 months before 1st of April, we were just on virtual calls, we were just on visits where bubbles were created for travel and those kind of activities. These investments are exploring, are continuing, but with the opening on 1st of April was just a welcome opening where companies are wanting to come in, wanting to feel what's available and what's around there, and to address many of their continued strategies. The strategies of optimizing their supply chain, strategies of creating cost efficiencies along their operations, and the distributed or disrupted supply chain as a result of the pandemic needs to be addressed as well. And this is where we saw companies were very quick to make that decision, and it certainly is a boost. We must commend the initiatives of the government as well. Driving the vaccination rate, that is certainly top of the order to increase investor confidence. The discussions in the background with regards to Malaysia exploring many of the trade agreements, that continued as well. Coming into 2022 with the opening certainly drove the confidence with investors as well as the markets alike.
All right, now let's take a closer look at the 2022 performance. What specific industries or sectors that saw the most investment into Greater KL, and why do you think these areas were particularly attractive to foreign investors?
Yes. The past 3 years have seen quite an interesting trend. Why I say that is because since inception in 2011 or the first 5 years, we could see that it's the predictable industries coming into Greater Kuala Lumpur. We are talking about oil and gas, agriculture, and electronics. That has evolved from 2016 onwards, where companies look at a lot more driven activities in technology, in Industry 4.0, as well as in big data. And that cuts across any industry in that particular viewpoint. Going back to your question about 2022, we saw a big increase and interest for companies that are in the pharmaceutical, medical devices area, companies in FMCG that have benefited along the 2 years of the pandemic, as well as companies that are focusing on technology, cloud, and big data. So these are the three industries that I say would headline the investments in 2022.
And in 2023 as well, do you think?
The momentum is there. The investments in activities such as technology and cloud, and with some of the most recent announcements by the Malaysian government too, with regards to the investments in this particular space, would certainly be something strong on the agenda. We could also look at the broader perspective of Malaysia, where we announced the National Investment Aspirations, NIA. That focuses on the 5 core pillars of industry in Malaysia, namely semiconductor, aerospace and petrochemicals. That would also drive the larger perspective of investments. But layered around that would certainly be a lot of technology that will be introduced by multinationals today in Greater Kuala Lumpur, as well as the potential investors that will come in.
All right. Now, drawing on your point about Malaysia's transformation as an investment destination, now over the years, most foreign companies see us as a manufacturing base, but that has changed, and Malaysia is increasingly seen as an appealing place, to set up their global services hub, for instance. What do you think changed for Malaysia?
The point of reflection, where back in 2011, as we look at the trajectory of growth, where would Malaysia want to be in terms of our new industries and in terms of the jobs that we will create? We must focus that we've got a 32 million, 33 million population, highly skilled and highly educated. Many of them are degree holders along the way. And looking at that perspective, how can we have a lot more focus towards knowledge, high-tech and high-skill type of activities? It's pivoting from a normal manufacturing type of activities into a lot more activities in the higher value chain. When we look at developed countries, when we develop this plan moving forward, many of these countries have also pivoted into the services industry.
Yep.
However, manufacturing is still the core and backbone of the country, but it is adopting the technologies of the future, the IoTs, the robotics, and the big data being in there. And this is where Malaysia must continue to assess our situation, look at the forward trajectory of how we want to grow the company or the country, and from there plan out the type of investments and activities that you want to attract. And to touch a little bit upon that, layer it accordingly to a city location where what best is in the city. The metro connectivity, the infrastructure and continued improvement towards the infrastructure. Today, Kuala Lumpur is also the natural location to secure higher education. And that's where it involves a number of potential people that would be onboarded in multinational companies, and more so the offering of the city as a location of choice for regional type investments.
If you look at the definition of what makes a competitive city, is often job creation, whether we can increase productivity and also income of the people. I do wonder, what does a competitive city look like to you? When you talk about companies setting up base here, it's just not the hardware and software, but it's also the overall ecosystem and environment in a city.
We always have to be mindful and benchmark ourselves with the top 20 cities of the world. There are many rankings out there. For example, the top 20 livable city, the top 20 most competitive city. And this is where Kuala Lumpur as a location need to reflect on areas where we can continue to focus upon and continue to improve upon. I must say that many of these multinationals, as they come in, we want them to also experience the city and experience the country. And that's probably where the integration would be better for the companies as well as the people, because at the end of the day, companies are run by people. They need to be comfortable, they need to be able to have a good lifestyle, as well as be able to explore what's around them. With this in mind, we have to work closely with the Ministry of International Trade and Industry and with DBKL, the local council over here, to put certain perspectives into what can be part of a city.
Well, granted, of course, the livability of a city is not under your remit, your purview, but do you see that factor as an increasingly important area or consideration for multinationals when they invest in a location long term?
As part of a evaluation process, when companies come in, there would be parts of business, topics on financial taxation, and there will certainly be a topic on livability. Some of the most basic questions would be, with the family, where would children be going to school? With the family, where would they be able to wander or explore the city and the country? And this is a perspective that yes, we are not directly in charge, but this makes sense for us to work directly with a local council, such as DBKL. Case in point, many of these MNCs, as well as ambassadors out there who are based in Malaysia, are excited to hear about the KL 2040 plan. What's the direction of the city? Where is the city going with regards to some of the bigger topics such as sustainability, such as inclusivity, as well as innovation? And when they have a perspective about the city and the government having a good plan and a clear plan, this is where we have seen many of them putting up their hands and asking, how can I contribute back to the community and the society? It's not just about me running a business, making profits. It's also about how I can connect back to the community, because at the end of the day, majority who are working on these multinationals are Malaysians.
Earlier you mentioned that there are certain areas that Malaysia should focus on, or Kuala Lumpur should focus on improving its appeal as an investment and livable destination. What are they?
The areas of ease of doing business is something that Malaysia must continuously focus on. There are different variables moving in the global landscape, and we cannot just be happy that we have broken the top 20, top 30 in terms of ease of doing business. The variables have also changed with regards to how people do business with digital banking and so on. So ease of doing business is something of a very important perspective there. Number two is Malaysia's continued focus towards infrastructure development. We are talking about a city needs to be able to offer the ease of mobility. We have, of course, the technologies that have driven the ride-hailing, the car sharing, and so on, but metro is very important too. We are happy to see today that the City Hall have introduced buses that are running on EV, and those perspectives of how things are done. Beyond that, areas where people can just have a good reflection and relaxing time in the hubs of where these activities can be done. That's including some of the parks that we have that needs to be and needs to continue to be developed. Some of the other cultural as well as heritage, including the museums. Because when investors want to come into a country, they are excited or they are curious to hear what's beyond the country than just business.
Well, certainly, and when we look at attractiveness, Malaysia is competing with other major cities in this region for investments, especially given a more tight economic environment at the moment. So what do you think that needs to be done for Malaysia to stand out more?
The narrative of Kuala Lumpur and the country must be driven in the right direction. We are hearing today that was recently introduced the Madani framework of operation. That has been received quite well among the people out there. We're talking about business, investors, and community alike, and we need to continue to drive these topics along the way with regards to how it is more localized in nature. In Greater Kuala Lumpur today, there are more than 40 public-private institutions of higher learning. Multinational companies are curious to see and hear who can I partner with to develop certain innovation and products or services that is probably more regionalized and localized to adapt to the ASEAN, to the Southeast Asia type of markets.
There's a lot of moving parts, and from the sounds of it, you're saying that things are falling into place. Do you feel that that is reflected in the business confidence that foreign investors are seeing in Malaysia? Because for the past 3 years, apart from the pandemic, Malaysia was bogged down by a lot of political uncertainties. But we are seeing some big names such as Amazon Web Services and Tesla announcing that they are committed to invest in Malaysia long term. Do you feel that part, restoring business confidence, putting Malaysia out there again and say, hey, we are open for business and we're going to make it good for you? Is that out there in the international stage?
Well, over the past 3 to 4 years, where we were having a little bit more of a colourful democratic play, what have been consistent has been the civil service. Driving the policies and initiatives that have been outlined before. This is independent of the powers that be that can come into the picture with regards to driving investments and so on. It's very much welcome that all this in sync together with the new administration that comes into play to address and to put on the table some of the initiatives as well as the way forward. I do not see any way but to go up with regards to this kind of messaging, and so far we have been receiving positive feedback starting in January when Malaysia participated in the World Economic Forum in Davos, and subsequently in the past weeks and months a number of visits by many other agencies or even ministries as well, and happy to also see visits by some of the highest dignitaries into the country. That certainly stems well with regards to the messaging, with regards to the investor confidence, and countries out there eager to reconnect with Malaysia and look at what can we do together as for growth on economy.
I like that you mentioned reconnect. You're suggesting that perhaps we had lost some of the luster in the past couple of years. So moving forward, Datuk, looking at the outlook that we're seeing right now, global slowing growth globally, inflation, is that all? How do you feel about that conversation about doom and gloom? Do you see there's more opportunities for Malaysia because of what's happening globally, geopolitical tensions between US and China, and people trying to reduce the risks by diversifying their supply chain? What is the overall picture looking like for you?
Yeah, we are certainly in an unprecedented time with many variables moving, as you mentioned. But looking at the focus of Greater KL as an investment location, this is probably, we will continue to do what we have been doing for the past 2 years that have proven to be fruitful and have proven to be in restoring investor confidence. That is to focus on the fundamentals of Malaysia, to look at and to work together with the industries and MNCs. What can we do as a government to facilitate investments? What policy changes can we make to drive these investments as well? And topics about talent. That is a global issue today. How can we close the gap with addressing this type of activities? In other words, it's about looking at eliminating the noise and focusing on the fundamentals and working with the multinationals to look at how we can bridge that gap. Over the past 2 years, yes, there were a lot of noises. And when we sit in a room with a potential investor, outlining these are the issues, these are the topics, and how we would want to address and take it forward, and that certainly have shown positive results and outcome.
And what is a conversation when you have discussions with the business leaders? What if there is a hesitation of investing in Malaysia or Greater KL? What would that be?
in many of the discussions, top on the agenda will always be question about, do we have talent, right? And we know certain types of talent there's a shortage around the world. So that's one area.
Okay.
The other area would probably be topics such as a little bit more on financial fiscal incentives that will probably trigger certain questions because of the recent advancements at the level of OECD and the World Bank. So that would be a question as well. Thirdly is looking at how they can have little bit of certainty on economic policies. So we would work on it and try to address those questions as we move forward with regards to the investments.
I do want to pick up your point on fiscal incentives, because one big thing that is happening this year, Malaysia has agreed to implement the global minimum corporate tax at 15%. While this will only apply to large corporates with an annual global turnover of, I think, 3.4 billion ringgit, using tax incentives as we do now to attract investments will no longer be as straightforward. So how will that impact your strategy if large corporations can no longer enjoy lower or zero tax rates in Malaysia?
Yeah, the ever-changing investment landscape and together with the recent global minimum tax announcement is certainly something that Malaysia needs to embrace and adopt as we move forward. The investments that today focuses a lot more on fiscal support would be investments that are in the capital expenditure space, capex heavy type of investments, and this is where we have seen proactively companies who are here in Malaysia engaging the government to look at the way forward to address the topic of global minimum tax. And together with the ministry as well as MOF, we are working to look at a solution about how to put together those type of activities and investment. Looking at specifically investments in the services sector, where it focuses a lot more on operational expenditure, OPEX, right? More often than not, they do not require incentive. And this is where we do not see an impact that will be triggered with investments within this particular space. Today, more than 70% of our investors are not enjoying any fiscal incentive with their regional hubs in Greater Kuala Lumpur. That is a testament again to the ease of doing business that they enjoy in Greater KL.
All right. Well, that's great to hear. And just the final few minutes that we have, Datuk Azmi, if you can walk us through some of your key focus areas for the next year or two for InvestKL, and where are the areas which you think Malaysia has the most potential, especially looking at the outlook and what investors are feeling internationally. There's a lot of focus in Southeast Asia region at this point in time.
We have seen over the years a lot of success in a center of excellence setup. These centers of excellence are covering a very wide range of activities. That includes activities in engineering, in infrastructure, finance, as well as supply chain. When we imagine this, it's talking about a bunch of people sitting in a room, but they are overseeing or have oversight on activities across the region, and they would be the ones that makes decisions for the region, and when they do that, it certainly is an activity right at the upstream, where only then downstream activities will be triggered. Why I focus on that is because the appreciation that Malaysia continues to deliver and produce the right type of skills and talent availability in the country, in engineering, in accountancy that is sought after around the world too. And this caliber as well as potentials continuously have been developed and continuously have been driven with regards to the centers of excellence type of setup. The activities in the digital economy, I imagine we are just at the starting point of where we are with regards to the potentials. Many companies, when they look at looking at testing out a product or testing out a technology, they would love to have it in Kuala Lumpur simply because we offer that a contained environment, not too large in capacity, not too large in perspective, but most importantly, a supportive policy and ecosystem that could help them to grow their products as well as services. Third is the information technology system that's moving so fast these days. We talk about cloud and recently ChatGPT coming up. A lot of potentials are there where Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia can play a role not just for technology, but we are even surprised with the capabilities and depth of language beyond the Malaysian shores. And that's something that MNCs have spent a lot of time to look at how they can locate this talent, train them up, and onboard them to be part of many of the large multinationals today.
No, that sounds fantastic. Just one final question, learnings from the past couple of years and avoiding pitfalls. If there's one lesson to be learned, and what's the key takeaway here for you as a leader for a very important agency like InvestKL?
We need to be focused on what's best for Greater Kuala Lumpur. When I say that, it is leveraging on the advantages of locating in Greater Kuala Lumpur. We cannot pretend that we are another location. We cannot pretend that we want to focus on other types of industries, and we cannot be seemingly moving towards other types of industries too. So that's very important, that focus is driven. Moving forward, there are a lot of topics on the ESG and the 17 SDGs. How can Greater Kuala Lumpur be that regional location with many of these multinationals putting up their hands, wanting to share knowledge, wanting to build competency, as well as looking at how they can be having their perspective of bringing many other companies up the value chain with regards to ESG. So with these policies as well as the direction of business, we must continuously hold on to it, drive the discussions forward, and ensure that there is a good buy-in across the ministries too, as we drive this agenda forward.
Right. Well, that's a lot on your plate, Datuk Azmi, but thank you so much for sharing insights and your thoughts about the direction of InvestKL. Thank you once again.